Today's vaccine is experience the series 3 Other Win Auto Series Volume 2 by Tracy Charles. Like, the link to the video will be the description below. Go in second match. So let's introduce vaccine in 3, 2, 1. The moon.
The anticipation had been building for weeks. Halloween night had finally arrived, and my friends and I were excitedly waiting in line for the annual haunted hayride that promised to be the spookiest experience of our lives.
A spooky one. Cool.
The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the sprawling cornfields and the rickety old tractor that would pull our hay-filled wagon through the darkness. Little did we know that the night would take a chilling turn that would forever haunt our memories. The air was crisp, and a thick blanket of fog had settled over the fields, obscuring our vision. The scent of damp earth and decaying leaves hung heavy in the air. As we climbed onto the wagon, I could feel the nervous energy in the crowd, a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The wagon creaked to life and we were off, jolting forward as the tractor's engine roared to life. The only source of light was the dim lantern at the front of the wagon, casting long, eerie shadows on the gnarled trees and rustling cornstalks that lined our path. Creepy sound effects and distant screams echoed through the night, setting the perfect atmosphere for a Halloween scare. As the ride progressed, the tension in the air grew palpable. We passed by dilapidated
I like a good Auto Win seal.
barns and decrepit scarecrows, their hollow eyes following our every move. My friends and I exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what to expect next. The darkness seemed to close in around us, and the feeling that we were being watched became impossible to ignore. The tractor slowed as we entered a dense thicket of gnarled trees. The lantern's feeble light barely penetrated the inky blackness, and a heavy silence descended upon the wagon. I strained my ears, listening for any sign of what was to come, but all I could hear was the rustling of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. Suddenly, the wagon came to a jarring halt, and the lantern flickered ominously. The tractor's engine fell silent, plunging us into complete darkness. Panic spread through our group like wildfire as we fumbled for our phones, using their feeble screens to cast a dim glow over our surroundings. A low, guttural growl echoed from the shadows, and we froze, our hearts pounding. Something was out there with us, something unseen and malevolent. The growling grew louder, closer, and then came a series of blood-curdling screams that pierced the night.
Oh no!
In the dim light, I saw the hayride's operator, his face contorted in terror, struggling to restart the tractor. But before he could,
I'll be in total too. If something warning is coming out, what I mean.
the darkness erupted into a frenzy of movement and horrifying shapes. Shadowy figures with glowing eyes emerged from the trees, their twisted forms contorting and writhing. Panic set in as we realized we were surrounded, trapped on the wagon by these grotesque apparitions. Their chilling laughter filled the air as they closed in, their bony fingers reaching out to touch us.
What?
My friends and I huddled together, clutching our phones like talismans against the encroaching horror. One of the figures, clad in tattered rags, reached out and grabbed my arm. Its touch was ice cold, sending a shiver down my spine. I struggled to break free, but its grip was unyielding. The creature's face came into view, a twisted mask of agony and despair. It spoke in a raspy whisper, "Help us." The haunting plea sent a wave of terror through me, but I couldn't look away from its piercing eyes. It was as if the very essence of suffering and anguish had taken form before me. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread and sorrow, as if I were drowning in a sea of despair. The other figures closed in, their voices merging into a cacophony of anguish and torment. My friends and I clung to each other, our minds on the brink of madness as the horrifying apparitions pressed closer. I couldn't tell if this was part of the planned experience or if something had gone horribly wrong. Just as it seemed we were about to be overwhelmed by the spectral horde, the lantern at the front of the wagon flickered back to life, and the tractor roared to life. The figures retreated into the darkness, their anguished cries fading into the night. The wagon lurched forward, and we were propelled away from the nightmarish scene. As we left the thicket of trees behind, the wagon's operator shouted over the engine's roar, "Sorry about that, folks. Looks like we had a little technical difficulty. We'll be heading back to the safety of the main trail now." Relief washed over us, but the memory of those haunted figures and their anguished plea would haunt our nightmares for years to come. We never found out if it was all part of the Halloween show
Alright, even and my number two.
or if something truly supernatural had occurred that night. To this day, I can't shake the feeling that we stumbled upon something ancient and malevolent in those dark woods, something that should have remained hidden.
Yeah.
The haunted hayride had promised scares, but what we encountered was a chilling and otherworldly terror that we could never have imagined in our worst nightmares.
Yeah. Wow. That was wow. I'll be creep out too, and I even literally gave me anti numbers. Yeah. Number two.
Every year, our office hosted a Halloween party, a chance for employees to unwind and show off their creative side. This year, I decided to go all out. My costume was a meticulously crafted zombie, complete with rotting flesh and eerie contact lenses. Little did I know that this Halloween would be one I'd never forget, for all the wrong reasons.
Really?
The office Halloween party was set to kick off at 7 p.m. The place was decorated to the nines, with cobwebs, skeletons, and eerie lighting. It was a festive atmosphere, and my colleagues and I were excited to leave the stress of work behind, even if only for a few hours. As the night wore on, the energy in the room soared. People danced, chatted, and enjoyed the free-flowing drinks and snacks. I reveled in the attention my zombie costume garnered, with coworkers complimenting my gruesome makeup and creepy demeanor. Around 9 p.m., the highlight of the party began, the costume contest. Employees lined up to show off their creative outfits, and I was among them, feeling confident that my zombie ensemble would give me an edge.
Yeah.
The applause and laughter from my colleagues filled me with a sense of accomplishment, and I took a bow before returning to my seat. The night was going wonderfully until the announcement of the contest winner. As the MC took the stage, a hush fell over the crowd. The winner, it turned out, was not me, but instead a coworker dressed as a headless horseman. I graciously applauded, although disappointment gnawed at me.
The winner was E-less Osman. I can't really eat up the zombie. I thought for sure the zombie will win.
Little did I know that the true horror of the night had only just begun.
What?
As the party continued, I noticed a change in the atmosphere. People's smiles seemed forced and laughter grew more infrequent. A sense of unease settled over the room, and it wasn't long before I realized that something was terribly wrong. I turned to a coworker and asked if they had noticed the shift in the party's mood. They nodded and whispered that they'd overheard a rumor. Apparently, our office building had once been a funeral home, and some believed it was haunted. I scoffed at the idea.
What the? It used to be a funeral home? Okay.
Attributing the unsettling atmosphere to the eerie Halloween decor.
Oh.
But as the night progressed, things took a darker turn.
Yeah.
Lights began to flicker intermittently, casting unsettling shadows on the
What?
walls. The music, once lively, grew distorted, the cheerful tunes turning into eerie, discordant melodies.
What?
I assumed it was just technical difficulties, but the
Yeah.
unease in the room was undeniable. Then I saw it, a figure in the corner of my eye, a shadowy presence that seemed to dart out of sight whenever I turned to look directly at it. It was as if someone or something was lurking in the periphery, just beyond my field of vision. I excused myself from the conversation I was in and decided to investigate. As I moved through the dimly lit office, I heard faint whispers, almost like a soft, mournful chant. They seemed to be coming from the walls themselves, as if the very building was trying to communicate. I couldn't resist the urge to follow the whispers, and they led me to a door marked Storage. I hesitated for a moment, but curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it cautiously. Inside, the room was filled with stacks of old documents, office supplies, and dusty furniture. It was the kind of place where forgotten items went to die, and it seemed to be the source of the eerie whispers. As I stepped further into the room, the whispers grew louder and more distinct. I strained to listen, trying to make out the words. It was as if the voices were speaking in a language I couldn't understand, their tone filled with sorrow and desperation. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was intruding on something beyond my comprehension. Then I saw them, ghostly apparitions, their forms shifting and translucent. They appeared to be dressed in old-fashioned clothing, and their faces were etched with anguish. They reached out to me, their hands cold and insubstantial, as if pleading for help. Panic surged through me, and I stumbled backward, slamming the door shut. The whispers faded, and the room grew still once more. I couldn't believe what I had just witnessed, and I wondered if the party had taken a toll on my senses. I rejoined my co-workers, but I couldn't bring myself to mention what I had seen. The unease in the room had deepened, and it was clear that others had noticed something was amiss as well. The night dragged on, the eerie occurrences continuing. Glasses shattered without warning, and chairs moved on their own accord.
What?
People whispered about seeing shadowy figures out of the corners of their eyes, just as I had. As the clock neared midnight, I decided it was time to leave. I said my goodbyes and made my way to the exit, relieved to escape the oppressive atmosphere of the office. As I stepped outside, I glanced back at the building, its windows dark and foreboding. I couldn't shake the feeling that our Halloween party had stirred something within the old funeral home, something that had been dormant for years. Whether it was a supernatural presence or just the power of suggestion, I couldn't be sure. But one thing was certain. I would never look at that office building the same way again, and I would forever remember the Halloween night when our
Yeah, me too. I won't forget the after experience.
festivities had gone terribly wrong.
Number 3.
Halloween night had arrived, casting a spell over our small suburban neighborhood. The air was crisp, the leaves rustled ominously underfoot, and the moon cast an eerie glow over the streets. My friends and I, a group of eager teenagers, had been looking forward to this night for weeks. We were armed with pillowcases to hold our candy haul, and our costumes ranged from classic monsters to pop culture icons. As we set out on our adventure, we could feel the excitement in the air, a sense of youthful rebellion as we embarked on our annual trick-or-treating escapade. But little did we know that this Halloween night would take us down a path of terror and the inexplicable. Our first few stops were uneventful as we exchanged greetings with friendly neighbors and received our fair share of candy. The night seemed ordinary, but as we ventured deeper into the neighborhood, the atmosphere grew progressively eerie. Fog had settled in, obscuring the streetlights and giving the familiar houses an otherworldly aura. Our excitement waned as we approached the house at the end of the cul-de-sac. It had always been known as the neighborhood's haunted house, a decaying Victorian mansion that loomed like a shadowy sentinel at the end of the street. Its overgrown yard was strewn with withered trees and gnarled bushes that seemed to reach out for anyone who dared to pass. The stories surrounding the house were the stuff of legend, whispers of strange happenings, eerie lights in the windows at night, and the occasional disappearance of pets. My friends and I had always dismissed these tales as mere superstitions.
The pets suddenly disappeared. Okay, that's a little creepy.
But now, as we stood
I wonder what happened to the pets.
before the mansion's wrought iron gate, a palpable sense of dread settled over us. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as we hesitated at the gate. The house was even more foreboding in person, its windows dark and lifeless. We had a choice to make: skip this house and move on, or muster our courage and confront our fears. In the end, curiosity got the better of us. We decided to test our mettle and venture up the winding path to the mansion's front door. The fog was so thick that we could barely
I'll be going the other way. Yep. I'm not going up to the door. Nope.
see the steps beneath our feet, and our breath hung in the frigid air. Each creaking step toward the door felt like a march into the unknown. The mansion's front door was massive, an imposing barrier that had seen better days. My friend Jenny reached out to knock, her hand trembling, but before she could make contact, the door swung open on its own, revealing a yawning blackness that seemed to stretch into infinity. We exchanged terrified glances but felt compelled to enter. The dim light from our flashlights cast eerie shadows on the decaying wallpaper and shattered furniture. Cobwebs hung like gauzy curtains, and the air was heavy with a musty, long-forgotten scent. As we cautiously explored the ground floor, our flashlights illuminated strange symbols etched into the walls, symbols we couldn't decipher. Our unease deepened with every room we entered, as if the house itself was watching and waiting. It wasn't long before we heard faint whispers echoing through the hallways, voices that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once. The whispers grew louder, unintelligible yet undeniably sinister. Panic set in as we realized we were no longer alone. We fled through the dark corridors, disoriented and terrified. Our flashlights flickered and died one by one, plunging
I'll be the first one out of the door. I'll be the first one out.
us into utter darkness. The whispers grew louder, their words now distinct, murmuring our names, taunting us with promises of doom. In the inky blackness, we stumbled upon a hidden staircase that led us into the
That's why I call it creepy with a capital C.
bowels of the mansion. It was there that we encountered a grotesque sight, a room filled with antique dolls, their glassy eyes staring blankly into the void. The dolls were arranged in a circle, their heads turning slowly to follow our movements. As we backed away from the sinister tableau, a figure emerged from the darkness, a gaunt and ghostly figure clad in tattered rags. Its face was a mask of agony, and it reached out with bony fingers, beckoning us closer. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of torment and despair. The figure's voice joined the chorus, begging for release from its eternal suffering. It spoke of curses and dark rituals that had bound it to the mansion, a fate worse than death. Terrified and desperate, we fled the room, stumbling up the stairs and out of the mansion. The front door slammed shut behind us, sealing the horrors within. As we stumbled down the path and back into the foggy night, we could still hear the whispers echoing in our minds, a haunting reminder of the terror we had encountered. To this day, we don't speak of what happened that Halloween night at the haunted house. It remains a chilling and inexplicable chapter in our lives, a reminder that there are mysteries in this world that are best left undisturbed.
Yep. True that, yeah.
Thanks for watching. Don't miss out on more spine-chilling tales. Subscribe now for weekly scares. Hit that red button and join our journey into the unknown.
Wow, that was wow. So I gave this video I 10 out of 10 on the creepy. So yeah, that was wow. That was really good. Yeah, that was experiencing the series 3 auto service volume 2 by Twisted Toss. That link to the video will be in the description below. Go and check them out. And go by like if you like, and comment down below if you want to see more videos like this one. And subscribe if you're new. And click the button to be notified when I upload. Bye. Wow.